So, onto the Avid version of this workflow. Now, this can go all kinds of wrong, so you'll need to set up your edit in Avid in a very specific manner. The first thing to note is that Avid actually has two ways of bringing assets into a project. There's the standard import, which we're not going to use in this lecture, and then there's the AMA link, and this is what we're going to use in this lecture in order to make sure that we can relink all our media back in Resolve. Now, this is not an Avid course. If you're editing in Avid, I'm going to assume that you already know how to navigate it. So we'll stick to the bits which are relevant to bringing a project into Resolve. And remember, we have to take care of our metadata before we cut the project together. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to bring my media in through an AMA link, and it's just the day 1, 2, 3 from the XML demo footage folder that we're using here. I'm going to select those folders and hit link. And here I have my material. Now there's a bit of housekeeping I'm going to have to do before I can start to edit, and the first thing I need to do is I need to add a custom column, and I'm going to call it backup file name. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to back up the original file names of the clips here into this backup file name column. That way, when these clips are synced with their audio, we don't have any risk of losing the original file names, which is something we're going to have to keep somewhere in order for the AMA to work, because we need to know what the actual files are called. It's no good if we change the name and it's now called something else. The AAF could wind up looking for that fictional file name that doesn't actually correlate to anything on our drive. So by doing this, we make sure that no matter what, we always have a backup of the original file name that we can use during the relink, no matter what else we do to the clip. So in order to do this, I'm going to left click on the name column, and that's actually on the word name up here to highlight everything in this metadata column. And then I'm going to hit edit and duplicate. And I'm going to duplicate that into the backup file name column. So in this select dialog, I'm going to select backup file name, and I'm going to hit OK. And now you'll see that I've got my original file names backed up in the backup file name column here. Now that's the first thing I need to do. I do also need to do something else before I can start editing. So down here, I'm going to scroll along until I can find the start column, and this contains the start time code for all of these clips. I'm going to drag this back along so it's a bit closer up to name and I can see it. Now I'm going to duplicate start into a separate metadata column, so then we also have the start time code of all of these video files backed up. So that way, if anything changes, if they become the Avid equivalent of a compound clip, or if I start to make subclips from them, I can still always go into the start column here, and then I have the original correct time code to reference during the relink back in Resolve using the AAF. So now I've clicked on the word start to select that metadata column. I'm going to hit edit, duplicate, and I'm going to duplicate that into auxiliary TC2, which is auxiliary timecode 2, and then hit OK. So I've now got my original file names backed up in my backup file name column, and I've got my original start timecode backed up in my auxiliary timecode 2 column. At this point, I can now begin my edit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just put a few clips down on the timeline. So here we have just a few random clips with a few random IO points just put down on the timeline. It's not a real edit, it's just for the sake of this demonstration. Now, before I actually start doing anything to this timeline, I'm obviously going to want to duplicate it, so I have an original version of the edit that I can always go back to. Now, doing this can actually be quite counterintuitive within Avid. It took me a while to find out how to do it the first time around. Over here in the right hand side, this is our program viewer. It shows us what's going on the timeline. I need to right click in here and choose duplicate, and that will duplicate the sequence. And now I'm going to make my adjustments within this duplicated sequence. So I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to get rid of any overlap, and then I'm actually just going to go straight up and delete the audio, because we've got the original audio from the other timeline still there, but I don't need any audio for the grade. So now I have my timeline with its pre-grade performed, and I now have to export my offline reference file. And doing this in Avid again is not the most intuitive thing in the world. So I've got this duplicate sequence open up here. I'm going to go to File, Output, and Export to File. And what I'm actually going to do is hit Options, and where it says AAF here, by default I'm going to choose QuickTime Movie. So I'm going to check video only because I don't need any audio. Native dimensions is absolutely fine. Keep as legal range is fine. I'm not going to do any scaling here, just I'm going to keep it the way it is. And then I'm going to hit Format Options. And under Settings, I'm going to choose Compression Type. You will have by default, your compression type will be animation. I am going to go down and choose H.264. I'm going to choose Faster Encode, Medium. Frame rate is current. Keyframe, I'll keep all that the same. It's just a basic reference file, so it doesn't need to any hardcore kind of compression going on. So this is now okay. These are correct settings. It's going to create just a standard H.264 codec QuickTime file that I can then use as an offline reference file. And then I'm going to use this as my pre-graded AAF offline reference file. So I'm just going to call it that. So I'm going to make a new folder and I'm going to save it in here so I know where to find it later. And when I hit save, it's just going to go ahead and it's going to export just like in any other program. And that's absolutely fine. So now that that's done, I've got my offline done, I've got my pre-grade done. The next step is for me to actually export the AAF file. So I've got my sequence highlighted. I'm going to go to File, Output, Export to File again. This time I'm going to hit Options, and where it says QuickTime Movie, I'm going to go to AAF, and I'm going to make sure that I have the correct settings. So I want Include All Video Data Tracks. I'm not bothered about audio tracks. Export method link, because I'm not transcoding anything, I'm not copying or consolidating anything, I'm going to leave it at link. You can choose copy media and consolidate media if you want to trim the media down, or if you want to move the media to a different location along with an AAF if you're handing over. That can be quite effective. I don't have any video effects, and I'm not transcoding anything at all. So now this is going to spit out an AAF text document that's going to make reference to the footage that I have used to edit this software, just like an XML would, except it doesn't carry over as much information as an XML. So I'm going to hit save, and then I'm just going to give it a file name. Then I'm just going to save it, and then I've got another sequence up here. So now we're okay, and we're going to take our project through to resolve in the next lecture.